the spring of 1940, when Britain was under threat, a secret army was formed to wreak havoc among the German invasion force.
We weren't out to fight the German army head-on. We were saboteurs.
A suicide squad with a life expectancy of less than 2 weeks.
Anyone who was captured would be tortured, brutally tortured.
The British Resistance, the country's first guerrilla army.
They were one of the secret services of World War II, and the evidence of that is undeniable.
This is the forgotten story of the defense of Britain, of an underground resistance movement formed to fight an occupying German army on British soil, of anti-invasion defences which lie broken and abandoned, of secret underground bunkers and plans at the highest level which predicted the worst possible outcome: German occupation. And in the spring of 1940, that seemed inevitable. Within months, obstacles against the invading German army had sprung up. The landscape bristled with barbed wire, pillboxes, and anti-aircraft batteries. And if these defences failed, there was a force willing to take the enemy on. Britain's largest ever volunteer army, eager for action against the Nazi invader, the Home Guard. But Dad's army was only ever intended to sap the strength of the initial invasion force. It would have been of limited use once the German army established itself on British soil. One man only too aware of this was Major General Colin Gubbins, one of the Army's top intelligence experts. He had seen what happened when the Germans brutally suppressed much of Europe and was determined that Britain should put up a stiffer resistance. Gubbins formed a secret army to go underground, to kill or be killed, and even to eliminate other Britons who threatened its ability to resist. It was the first time a resistance movement had been set up in advance of enemy occupation. Major Peter Forbes was working in Army intelligence when he was asked by his commanding officer to find potential recruits.
He gave me a very powerful letter to Home Guard commanders that they had to give me anything I wanted without question, and the best of their men. I interviewed them, checked out with the police that there was nothing on them, and then I said, would you be willing to join something which could be very dangerous, but I can't tell you what it is unless you sign the Official Secret Act.
One morning we were paraded and an army officer came out and said, I want volunteers for a very dangerous job. 3 of us stepped forward. I was one of the Salifos. So he said, well, you'll be trained as far as we can train you to come up behind the Germans, and the way he put it was, and play merry hell with them.
He asked us all sorts of questions about our families, what they did, how long we'd lived in the area, did we know our way around, could we catch a rabbit, and things like that.
I said, well, why do you want me? They said, well, because you know the area. You know the whole area. And they said, you should have demonstrated, you know, going out on a night, bang, bang, in the woods. I said, ah, that's it, Jack, because I like to do a bit of poaching. We knew the countryside and the woods and everything very, very well, for miles around. So I said, we want you.
So we signed this piece of paper, which we found out afterwards was the Official Secrets Act. And then he said, no, I'll tell you what you've joined. It's a group called the Auxiliary Units.
He said, if you'll agree, you must keep silent for 30 years at least. Tell no one. No one must know what you're doing. And from then on, we began to be trained as guerrilla units.
Although they received similar training to the Home Guard, these resistance fighters belonged to an entirely separate and secret organization.
I I think they saw themselves in Paris and the Home Guard as superior. They had been especially picked out, and were doing more interesting things, really.
We knew the Home Guard were having useless parades up and down the streets and mounting guard at 1 or 2 points. It didn't concern us. We were cut off completely from the Home Guard once we joined the guerrilla units.
The most essential skill of any auxiliar was to stay alive as long as possible. And it was here at Coles Hill in Wiltshire that they learned how to conceal themselves from the enemy. Deep in these woods, they were taught how to build underground operational bases, known as OBs, where they would hide in the event of an invasion. Woodland all over the country betrays an occasional trace of these secret hideaways. But sites like these are rapidly fading from the landscape. The Defence of Britain project was set up recently to record them before they vanish completely. This painstaking research was organised by the Council for British Archaeology, whose president is Francis Pryor. He's been investigating the hidden bunkers at Coles Hill with Jeff Devereux, one of the first resistance fighters to be trained here.
Jeff, did they always locate these OBs in woodland?
Almost always. Sometimes there were a few in farmyards and places like that. But obviously it's much easier to camouflage an entrance like this in a woodland than in open ground.
But I mean, looking at this, I mean, I'm told that brickwork's modern so that people don't fall down for sort of health and safety, but what would it have looked like originally in the war?
Well, if you went in through the main entrance, you would pile the leaves up a bit like that. Not too obviously, but then a bit of breeze would scatter them over the top and you'd have a hidden entrance, you know.
Most operational bases were destroyed at the end of the war. This is one of the few that survived.
I tell you what, Jeff, it's fairly restricted entrance, isn't it?
Yes, but you need a blast wall like this, of course.
That's what that is, blast wall.
Yeah, so if somebody drops a grenade down there, you're protected to some extent.
Most OBs were built like this one, sunk around 15 feet into the ground with a concrete floor and walls of brick and corrugated iron.
And what's that for?
Many were built by the Royal Engineers. The men were brought in especially from other parts of the country, so they couldn't betray the whereabouts of these secret underground hides.
This is the dining room.
The living dormitory.
And these over here, were these the beds?
Yes, there were bunks there, double-decker bunks.
And then I noticed in the floor there's a drain goes down the middle.
That's right. That's for surplus water coming in.
But it couldn't have been much fun, though. I mean, standing with running water going down the middle of the floor. I mean, weren't you always tripping up on that?
Yeah, we weren't here for fun, though.
Each operational base was big enough to hold between 6 and 8 men. It contained everything they would need to survive underground and carry out sabotage operations successfully. It would be the only place they could call home should the Germans occupy Britain.
I think we thought that we were probably safer in our underground OBs than fighting on the surface against the invasion. Looking back, I think it was looked upon as a suicide mission, but we didn't feel that at the time.
The men were expected to last only 2 weeks at the very most before being captured or killed.
Tell you what, Jeff, this doesn't look very secure, this. I mean, what does it feel like to go back in one?
Well, it brought back feelings of terror, to be honest, because you felt very insecure in there, you know. You couldn't lock any doors or you weren't very well protected.
Around 3,500 men were recruited to the ranks of this secret underground army.
It was intended that we should go underground, lie quiet, let the invasion forces pass over us, and then bob up behind and create as much mayhem as we could.
Our intelligence officer would guide us, advise us. And then he cheerfully said, of course, we wouldn't expect you to be alive at the end of 13 days.
In the summer of 1940, there was still the very real threat of invasion. Barges, heaving with weaponry, lined the French ports, just waiting for Hitler's order to cross the channel. It looked as if these resistance fighters would finally see action.
The other thing was, it was all rather exciting and a ridiculous thing to say now.
The new Saab 93 diesel convertible, the evolution of an icon.
When she got cancer, in a way I was annoyed at her because she knows smoking's bad for her.
So I bought my plot at the cemetery and they came with me to choose it.
I don't care, she's my mum, I'll care for her whatever happens.
She chose it, she was very brave. Broke my heart, really did. But at least I know she's got somewhere to go when I'm not here, if she just wants to talk to me.
For help giving up, call 0800 169 0169.
Everybody wants perfect vision. Who wouldn't? Imagine freedom from glasses and contact lenses. Laser eye treatment from Ultralaser has made this possible for thousands of people.
The treatment itself, I can't fault it.
The vision is even better now than it was with glasses. It's brilliant.
Ultralaser offers Wavefront, the superior laser eye treatment for a better quality of vision. For a free DVD and information pack, free phone 08000 08000 or visit ultralaser.com.
I'm so grateful. I really am grateful to Ultralaser.
Only Velux blinds fit Velux roof windows perfectly. With our unique pick-and-click system, they can be fitted in minutes. And they come in a huge range of designs and colours. For more information, call 0800 980 7180 or visit our website.
Oh yes, it's me again, with a new cleaner from Sillet Bang that's the bee's knees. It tackles the toughest jobs, like nightmare stains or clogged drains. Hi, I'm Barry Scott, and I'm here to introduce new Sillet Bang Universal Stain and Drain. Look, the toughest toilet stains are no match for its supreme cleaning power. And as for pongy drains, phew! Its incredible formula keeps them flowing free and smelling fresh. Look at this blockage. No job's too tough. Toilets, drains, floors, surfaces, all with just one bottle. New Sillet Bang Universal Stain and Drain. Bang! And the dirt is gone.
Giving up smoking was a bit of a family affair because I went with my brother and my sister. I was worried that the people in my local NHS stop smoking service wouldn't understand how hard it is to give up, but really they were lovely. They really did help me get through the toughest moments, and I quit about 6 months ago.
For details of your local service, call 0800 169 0169.
You look gorgeous today. Your skin's radiant. You really look amazing. You're glowing.
The compliments just keep coming for Olay Complete Multi-Radiance, a moisturizer with light-reflecting particles. The cover of Elle read, "A skin miracle we loved so much, we quit wearing makeup," and gave it a glowing 5 stars.
Are you in love?
Could be. Elle loves Complete Multi-Radiance from Olay. Love the skin you're in.
Ben and Amy Coley decided to ditch the rat race in London for their dream life in France. But now, after their guest house has bombed, they have to risk everything. But with a baby on the way, is more property really the answer?
It's starting to look like a disaster.
There's no going back. A New Life in France, Thursday at 8:30 on 4.
On the 7th of September 1940, code word Cromwell swept through the South and East Command. Invasion by the Germans was imminent. Church bells pealed across the land to warn of the impending landing by German troops on British soil. 1.5 million Home Guard immediately mobilized. In Dorset, it was the news that Fred Simpson and his patrol had been expecting and dreading. The memory of that day is still vivid 65 years on.
We were exercising one morning somewhere around here, probably in the heath over there. An officer came along quickly. He said, "Stop what you're doing, stop what you're doing." He said, "We want you to go home at once," he said, "and get all the food. Get all the food you can and come back and go in that hide." So we did. We rushed home. I said to my mother, "I want some food to take away for this weekend." She said, "Whatever for?" I couldn't tell her, could I? We'd signed the Official Secrets Act. I couldn't tell her what I was doing. She said I should be away for a little while. I could have said forever if there was an invasion, but never mind. We all went down in that hole. The last man dragged the bush behind him to stop the hole up. And we stayed there for, it was 2 nights and a day approximately. I'm not sure about the time of the day or anything like that. The authorities thought the invasion was a mere 12 hours away. And that's what we were waiting for, the enemy. We expected to hear the tramp of any big boots over the top or something like that. We didn't know. And suddenly a voice from outside said, "You can come out now, the danger is over."
This time it was a false alarm. But the threat of invasion was far from over, and the men knew how important it was to be well prepared. While the Home Guard was drilling with broomsticks, the resistance fighters were becoming adept at using the most sophisticated weaponry. This was essential if they were to become effective saboteurs.
We were given all the latest equipment, Tommy guns, Seine guns, rifles with special sights, entirely on Churchill's orders.
They also learned all about fighting dirty. As they were told by one of their instructors, "If you think our methods aren't cricket, remember Hitler doesn't play the game." This fighting knife was standard issue for every guerrilla.
Well, we weren't supposed to go into open combat. The fighting knife wasn't really to fight with, it was just to quietly kill. I think you understand how that happened.
Even now, many of the techniques they learned are second nature to these men.
I'm coming through the wood on patrol. I see a sentry. I have to kill him quickly and silently. So I grab a handful of soil and leaf that I can ram into his mouth to stop him shouting. As I come up behind him, I take the hand and put the dirt in his mouth to stifle him, get him, pull his head to one side and strike hard into the neck.
Sometimes, to carry out an operation successfully, a resistance fighter had to kill. But it wasn't ideal. The last thing he wanted was to draw attention to himself. His success relied on his ability to remain invisible.
The patrols would not have stood a chance in a firefight. We weren't heavily enough armed to firefight a German patrol. In fact, as they said in training, if they see you, you're dead.
If the Nazis had overrun Britain, they would have faced more than just a guerrilla army. An extensive intelligence network with secret underground transmission stations had mushroomed across the country. It was almost as if the Germans were already here.
The network consisted largely of people who were likely to have permission to carry out their activities in normal employment after invasion, such as doctors and milkmen and estate agents and solicitors, people who would have local mobility, and this would enable them to gather intelligence for transmission to Army headquarters.
Intelligence gathering in Norfolk was crucial. Its exposed position on the east coast made effective lines of communication a necessity. Even 16-year-old girls like Jill Monk were recruited as agents.
I was really part messenger and part spy, I suppose. Probably the idea was that a teenage girl riding a horse wouldn't be suspected of being anything sinister.
Jill's father and mother had also been recruited to the network as radio operators. As the local GP, her father was an ideal recruit. Jill was trained to identify enemy aircraft, their cargo, and the military insignia worn by German soldiers. She would hone her skills on Allied troops in the area, who had no idea that this seemingly innocent young girl was a spy.
It was great fun trying to gather information from the soldiers, because they were tickled at this girl on a horse coming along, and I'd try and find something to talk about and have a good look at their shoulder flashes so that I could say what regiment they were, and I'd ask them about what guns they'd got and whether they were big ones or little ones. And when I got the information, I went back home and mother or father got the code sheets out and encoded the information, and then they would send a message through. We didn't know where it went to, it just you spoke into the radio and that was it.
The methods Jill used to relay information from one point to another could have come from the pages of a spy novel. An agent would leave a message in a secret drop-off point, known as a dead letter drop. Under cover of darkness, Jill would retrieve the message and deliver it to a hidden postbox, usually a piece of drain pipe, leading to an underground radio station. These messages were often placed in tennis balls to enable them to roll down the drain pipe. The operator would then transmit the message to HQ.
It was really a very clever system. Very Heath Robinson, but typically British, I think. Of course, when you dropped your tennis ball down the drain pipe, you didn't know who it was going to, because we weren't allowed to know anybody else who was in the job, because if the Germans had come and we were caught, we couldn't give anybody else away. They could torture us all they liked, but what we didn't know, we couldn't tell them.
In the spring of 1941, Germany invaded the Soviet Union. Operation Barbarossa had begun. Now that Hitler's armies were concentrating all their efforts on the Eastern Front, would the invasion threat finally recede?
That was not seen as a point that took the heat off here at all. Indeed, on a technical point, Hitler didn't ever cancel the planning that was already underway for the invasion of this country. Whether or not it was known at the higher circles that the invasion threat to the United Kingdom was then off, it certainly was not known to the public. And the public included the members of the auxiliary units.
The units intensified their training. 100 new patrols were formed. These guerrillas were better equipped and better armed than ever before. Their mission was to destroy the infrastructure that would be essential to an occupying German army. That included our own airfields and railways. Disrupting German supply lines was a key part of the guerrilla strategy.
I'm placing an explosive charge against this line to cause a breakdown. This is a pressure switch connected to a detonator within the charge. As the train goes across the track, it presses this, which fires a little charge in here. Fuse links into the detonator there. We wedge this under the rail so that it's pretty firm, because we're relying on the movement of the track to ignite the charge. With a sufficient charge, we rupture the rail, and the locomotive is derailed. You never run away from a charge, ever. You always walk, because you could trip over. If you trip over, you're going to be on the ground close to the charge. If you walk, you're watching what you're doing.
should a sabotage operation go wrong, capture by the enemy was not an option.
If we went out and one of us got hurt, badly hurt, and you couldn't get him back, you had to kill him. You had to make sure that he wasn't captured, because anyone who was captured would be tortured, brutally tortured.
Your colleagues would have been doing you a good service by terminating you.
They would have tortured you for the information, then they would have killed you anyway. So you were going to die anyway. So the best thing to do, of course, was not to be caught alive.
We knew we had self-destruct habits to kill ourselves if we got to take corner. And I think we should have used them.
The instructions were fairly clear. Take one pill if you are injured to reduce the pain. Take 2 pills if you are about to be captured and wish to be able to resist interrogation, and take 3 of these pills if you wish to take your own life.
No surprise then that evading capture was one of the most useful lessons the guerrilla learnt. And if his life depended on it, these were lessons he would never forget.
I surrender. Come on. I walked towards this guard and I would approach him knowing that I had full advantage, because I could see he was frightened of me. And I keep smiling, and he's confused because he's looking at something that's bewildering. He's really frightened. So I immediately take the rifle away, and if he pulls the trigger, it's gone. And then I would come over, force down there, force it out of his hand. And then I come round, and he would come upright, surprised. And I would hit him right in there, which would paralyze him. If I hit him hard enough, it would kill him.
Dispensing with the enemy is an unfortunate byproduct of war, and these resistance fighters had no qualms about killing. But what is extraordinary is that these men were also prepared to turn on their own people, on anyone who compromised their security.
We had authority. If we found collaborators in any of the villages around us, to kill them, to shoot them. They were blabbering too much, talking too much to the Germans. The best thing